Interview.
Hey everybody, it's Ricardo, and we are here at Captivate in Miami, Florida, where Ono-san just showed everybody Street Fighter Cross Tekken first playable, and he hinted at new characters and showed a bunch of new content. So tell us just how much of the game you actually showed off today.
So if we're looking at this as being the end content of the game, I showed you maybe this much today.
Now, one of the biggest things that stood out to us has been the new fighting system that you've implemented. So I know there's very little that you can say specifically about it, but for folks at home that didn't get a chance to play it like we did, talk to us about what we're seeing and how you arrived at that decision in terms of evolving the system for this game.
So when we talk about the gameplay systems, when we talk about control and things like that for this game, the first thing on a lot of people's minds is this going to feel like a Street Fighter game? Is it going to control like a Street Fighter game? The answer to that is yes. Your follow-up question then would be, well, does that mean that the Tekken guys are going to feel exactly like Street Fighter characters? The answer to that question is no. We're going to have several kind of entry points or gateways, so to speak, for Tekken players to enter into the game, with the final destination being enjoying this brand new title. So there's certain concessions, certain things we've done to even the playing field to make them feel at home, you could say, in this game right now. We're just getting to a point now in development where things are starting to gel, things are starting to come together, and it's feeling really good. I think everything is merging quite well.
Now, in this blending, we're seeing the Tekken characters having a lot of their moves brought over to this game. Now, some of the characters have insanely long combos that are very complex. How much of those are actually making it into this game?
You're not going to see the presence of every super long combo string. You're not going to sit there and type at the joystick, so to speak. You will see a good amount of these kind of Tekken-style combos, enough to entice Tekken players who might remember how to do some of the combos off the top of their head. What you're not going to see are crazy 100-hit, super long command combos where basically the match starts and then you spend the entire match getting punched in the kidney up against the wall because some guy's doing a crazy combo. You're not going to see that, but there will be just enough of that feel so that it feels Tekken-y enough so that you can enjoy it from that perspective.
Now, the build that we're playing here today is online enabled, so we're able to just get a very small sample of what online play is going to be like. The Street Fighter series has been quite a bit more advanced than the Tekken series in terms of its online offerings. What can we expect from this game in terms of some of the channels and some of the replay features that you've added to Super Street Fighter 4 and the arcade edition of that game?
Yeah, so basically you can consider anything that's in Super Street Fighter 4 Arcade Edition to be the bare minimum, the basics of the feature set you'll see, and we'll build a lot on top of that as well. Tekken 6 had some pretty solid online. Surely Tekken Tag Tournament 2 is going to have some new features. Our goal with this game is to get so ahead of the curve that Namco's going to have to struggle to catch up with us again.
Now, as far as the roster goes, the Tekken series has always been a little bit ahead of Street Fighter because I think the last Tekken game had like 4,000 characters in it, and the last Street Fighter game had, in the 30s. So you've said there's going to be a lot of characters. You guys announced 10 here. Can you give us a rough idea of what to expect in terms of a roster?
The short answer to that is as many as humanly possible. We certainly don't want to lose to Tekken. Any of the dev team that's watching this interview right now is probably white as a sheet and kind of freaked out because I've just promised something and they have to deliver on it. But short answer, a ton of characters, more than you expect.
Now, ever since the game was announced, the internet has been very lively with discussion on both sides about fan expectations. So Street Fighter fans have high expectations, Tekken fans have high expectations. How has that impacted development, especially in the area of balance?
Yeah, so basically after we announced the game at Comic-Con last year, been keeping a close eye on the forums, at GameSpot and elsewhere, seeing what the fans are saying, keeping track of what is on their mind. One thing we noticed repeatedly, especially from the start, is a lot of Tekken players were concerned that there are so many projectile throwers on the Street Fighter side. How are we going to deal with this? We never had to deal with this before. We've done a lot of thinking in that arena, and we think this game will likely focus a little less on that and a little more on kind of in-your-face, close quarters combat, which is not to say you can't throw Hadoukens anymore, because you obviously can. But we're going to focus a little bit more in that direction, so we think we can put the Tekken players' minds at ease, and we can offer Street Fighter players kind of a new, fresh approach to some of their favorite characters and methods of combat that might not be as traditional or orthodox for those characters.
Now, in the version we played today, there's just a very small sampling of stages, and one stage in particular is a little bit more fantastical. There's dinosaurs, and there's even a two-part portion of the stage. So is that a hint of what we can expect from the final game, and how many of those stages are going to come from the Tekken universe versus Street Fighter?
So I think the answer to your question is a little from column A, a little from column B. I think the general overall theme for this is kind of a party, big party, anything goes. So you're going to see some wackiness in the stages that you might not see in a traditional Street Fighter game. You can see some more fantastical sort of imagery and that sort of thing. What we are not doing is we're not really separating them out into distinct Tekken stages and Street Fighter stages. What we're hoping to do is kind of get a fusion of both together, and what we'll do, if you look very closely in the background, you'll start to notice some kind of fan servicey type things going on. You'll see things that might remind you of certain scenes or certain characters in Tekken or Street Fighter, so you have to keep an eye out for that when you play the game. And to give you one example of the dinosaur stage that you already looked at today, if you look very carefully in the background, you can see Alex from Tekken wandering around out there in the background.
And then the last question, which is probably the most important one to anybody watching this: when is the game coming out?
This will be a little vague, but I gave you the example earlier of if we're showing you this much content, this represents the actual total content of the game. If I were to use similar hand gestures to explain the progress of development, I would say somewhere around half-ish, and I would put my hand right about here.
All right, so we're gonna hope and guess that maybe it's coming out later this year, early next, maybe. But until then, we will be following you. So thank you very much, sir. And check out back on the site. We'll be stocking them until we get a release date.